although it starts in 1761 with its process and recipe as a Warrington dry gin in the north of England, created by a man called Thomas Dakin, it was launched as Bombay in the late 50s, 1959, through a wonderful club called the Gaslight Club. Now, the Gaslight Club was set up in Chicago by Burton Brown. Burton Brown wanted to recreate the Prohibition speakeasies at the time. So the trend we're seeing today is actually 50 years old, really, rather than almost 100 years old. Okay? Burton Brown's Gaslight Clubs are famous not for being in any of the social districts, not for being in the business districts. He chose the edges of residential areas for his first Gaslight Club. It was a private residential building. Nothing marked it out. There were no valets, no red carpets, no ropes. All there was a single black door and a gaslight outside. And only the members knew where it was. It was that secret. Access was by way of a personalised gold key. These gold keys first traded hands to initial membership at around $1 a piece. Within 6 weeks, they were over $50 a key. Such was the demand to come to the Gaslight Club. And it was the patrons of the Gaslight Club who were wanting a more refined gin at the time, who were served Bombay Original Dry Gin, which is still available today in America and Spain, but I believe about to be rolled out around the world in the next couple of years. So look out for that too. And that bases on the original recipe from 1761 with 8 botanicals and a vapor infusion process. Later though, in the 80s, Michel Roux and the master distiller Ian Hamilton gave us Bombay Sapphire, the addition of cubeb berries and grains of paradise. The botanicals themselves, for those that are interested later, are all up here on top of the piano. And I'd encourage you all afterwards, if you like your flavour, to have a play around with the botanicals, and you'll see all of those flavours are inherent in the gin itself. Chef Eric here will be working with those flavours with me while I work with them with cocktails. And, oh yes, one other little thing, 1761. It's our 250th anniversary this year as well, for Bombay Sapphire. Well, that's when the process itself of vapor infusion and that original Warrington dry gin with 8 botanicals was first created. So a very special year for us. And so I'm happy you could all join us to celebrate. Now, what are we going to do with these cocktails? I've kept them nice and easy for you, okay? Because I'd like to think that you can all head back to your houses and at some point this summer, host your own little secret party, okay? Something just for the closest friends of friends. Not a big free-for-all where everyone brings everybody. A small, intimate gathering, much like the original speakeasies would have been, and where you can make them some really fine drinks. But of course, when they ask you what's in them, don't tell them. So I'm going to kick us off first with a great drink called a Sapphire and Sin. Back in the 20s, there was a classic gin cocktail called a Gin and Sin, aptly named because drinking gin at the time was a sin. And we're going to serve this short and use, in the traditional 20s style, large chunks of ice. Don't forget, the ice machine didn't come along until the 50s. And so bartenders at the time would have worked off large chunks of ice, such as I have done today. Okay? I was actually chatting with Mike, wasn't it, earlier?
Marcus, sorry,
earlier, about going to Japan. It's still a habit you see all over Japan at the moment. Anyone else who goes there, please. You've been as well.
Yes, and that's the round ball.
And they do the balls as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's great.
And it's a lovely thing to see. And I think this is another thing that maybe we should push forward. Good quality ice next to a good quality spirit is one of the most important things in any cocktail, to be honest. So, good quality ice is what we're using. If you want to make it yourself, by the way, just boil up your water first, let it cool to around finger temperature, put it into an Eskimo cooler, okay, picnic cooler, and put that into the freezer. For those that you have the large chest freezers at home. It'll take about 3 or 4 days to freeze, but what you should end up with is an almost crystal clear block of ice. A nice thing to have and a nice thing to use. From there, well, just smash it to pieces, have some fun. It's great. You end up, as you can see, with these beautiful gem-like cubes. So now the Sapphire and Sin, very, very easy. I'm going to use for each 1.5 ounces of sapphire. To be honest, you can measure. Measuring's good to keep the balance in check. But if you're doing it at home, you should be able to do it by eye. I've got there about 3 ounces, enough for 2. Enough to let the gin shine through, but enough to keep the alcohol levels down as well. And to that, we're going to add fresh lemon juice, an ounce for each. Here we're playing with the lovely citrus flavours. We've got Spanish lemon peels in Bombay Sapphire itself, so it makes sense to put a little lemon juice in there. Now, I take it a lot of you go out drinking cocktails in Montreal already, yes? Yes. Right, good. And you see what on the bars? Lemon juice, lime juice. Yep. That's what you see. I'm going to use fresh orange, straight from the fruit. I've squeezed this by hand earlier, okay? You can use a fresh squeezed box orange, but I'd really encourage you, squeeze it there and then from the fruit. The combination of the two lifts the whole drink, and it pairs very nicely with the coriander seed that we have also in Bombay, and gives you something really light and refreshing. Now the original gin and sin, just half an ounce for each. Now the original gin and sin would then have been sweetened with grenadine, a ubiquitous ingredient at the time. Grenadine, I mean, if you're going to stock a few things in your house for some prohibition drinks, vermouth, grenadine, actually some eggs. A lot of eggs came in their drinks back then. I'm not going to use any today, but they're useful to have. But vermouth and grenadine. But I'm going to swap that out today for ginger syrup. Simple syrup, sugar, water, reduce it in the pan, little fresh ginger. Job done. Okay? And that adds a nice little piquancy to my drink.
Do you grate the ginger?
Yes, you do. Just slice it up, peel it, wash it, peel it, slice it up in the pan with your sugar and water.
Okay.
Nice and easy way to do it. If you want to get really fancy, Kim, you can actually, because I know a lot of people are into their health kicks these days as well, so you may have a centrifugal juicer at home. So juice your ginger and use the ginger juice with sugar to make the syrup, and then you'll have a really rich aromatic syrup. Okay. But failing that, if you want a nice quick way of doing it, just sugar, water and your ginger. And once done, by the way, it's not just for the one day. It'll last you several weeks in the fridge, so you can keep hold of it for a while. It's a useful ingredient to have around. But that's it, simple drink, 4 ingredients. Most of the prohibition drinks were very, very simple. And now I'm just going to crack a little ice into there as well for us. Okay. Just use an old blunt knife, is always good. Don't use your best knives for doing this sort of thing. Okay, that one's good. There we go, just enough ice in there to shake and chill the drink. And shake them well. If you're going to shake your drinks, that's not going to do too much to your cocktail. Really, please. When you're out and about, especially if you're going out for a nice Bombay cocktail anywhere in town and you catch your bartender giving you just a bit of that, no, please just ask him to put a bit of life into it. Nicely. Drinks should be served while they're still laughing at you, is what Harry Johnson said, another famous bartender of the era. There we go. Over our beautiful gem-like cubes, into a couple of nice old-fashioned style glasses. Another great trend, by the way, to look out for. Thrift store glassware. Okay, thrift store glassware. Go out shopping in the local antique shops and second-hand shops and charity shops. Seriously, you find some of the most incredibly sexy glassware out there. I love it. And it just adds again to that sort of authentic feel from the period. There you go, a couple of slices of ginger to garnish this off. And in a moment, Chef is going to pair this for us with the first dish that I think you all tried. And you have here a Sapphire and Sin, a little coriander leaf on top. Just add some colour, a little freshness on the bouquet. There you go, guys. If you're going to take a photo, I have to put a bottle in there for you.